Hi everyone, it's Olivia from Pindot Press. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to set up a Zine for booklet printing using software. Now, the first and most important thing I'd like to tell you is that if you are working with a local Riso printer, you should ask them or check on their website for their formatting requirements and conform your files to those requirements. Now, in this studio, we rely a lot on the artists to set up the booklet layout for us. And so I'm going to show you different ways of setting up your booklet layout because different methods come intuitively to different people. But what I will say is that certain formats are easier to work with than others. And so as I'm going through different methods with you, I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each. Okay, so let's get started. So my friend Greer has very kindly allowed us to use her files to set up a mock zine. And this zine is called The Satisfactory But Not Especially Good Book of Zoology, Toronto Zoo Edition. And if you'd like to pick up a copy of this super hilarious and informative zine, you can head over to her website and her online store and you can pick up a copy right here. Now this zine is 40 pages long, but we're going to pretend it's 20 pages for brevity's sake. So the first method is actually to use Photoshop to lay out your zine. But if we're going to be using Photoshop to lay out your booklet, then we first need to have an understanding of booklet page ordering. So cut to a quick tutorial about that. Alright, so this is a 20-page booklet, and as we have seen in a previous tutorial, Booklet Basics Part 1, this is made of 5 sheets of paper folded in half, so I'm going to show you that right now. So I'm going to flip through, so this is page 1. And 20. So I'm going to go ahead and unfold this booklet. And I'm going to lay out all the pages facing the same direction for one side. And we'll call this the front side because the cover is page 1. All right, so as you can see, here are all of one side of this booklet, and I'm going to flip it over. And here's the other side. So the center spread is 10 and 11. So as you can see, the booklet is not in numerical order, so the pages, when you fold them, it looks like this. It's 20 and 1 and 2 and 19 and so forth and so on. Alright, so this is an animation representation of booklet numbering. This will show you my trick of how to figure out which pages go where when laying out your booklet. Let's take a 20-page booklet for example. So I divide 20 pages by 4 to get 5 sheets of paper because each sheet of paper is 4 pages. And again, please check out my Booklet Basics Part 1 for more information. I'll put a link in the description section below. So here's the front side of the 5 sheets of paper with a centerfold running down the middle. And here is the back side of the 5 sheets of paper with a centerfold running down the middle as well. The first page always starts on the right of the front side. So we're going to put number 1 on that. Then on the other side of the sheet, page 2 is in back of page 1. So if page 1 is on the right side, then page 2 must be on the left when you flip the sheet. Now, I just keep going down these columns. When you think about it, these are all the pages that are going to be on one side of your booklet, so one side of the staples or fold. The last sheet of paper is the bottom of the pile to be stapled, and the back of that is the center spread. This is an excellent area to put an awesome graphic or statement because it won't be interrupted by a folded page. Now I just make my way back up with the page numbers, and you'll know that you did it right when you have the first and the last page on the same side of the same sheet. So if you have a 20-page booklet and you divide that by 4, that's 5 sheets of paper folded in half, as we have seen many times in this tutorial. You're probably sick of me mentioning that, but here we are. Here's 5 sheets, and we're just gonna fold or make this kind of fold. So that's the front, and we'll make the other side. And as we saw in the animation, we're going to number it like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this is a very fast way that you can create your booklet ordering, and you can actually customize this any way you want. Whether your booklet is 16 pages, 24 pages, or 40 pages, you can make a mock-up like this and just follow the order of how I Alright, so now that you know about the quirks of booklet page ordering, and now that you have your 20-page booklet ordering cheat sheet, let's get started. So I'm actually going to open up the first page of Greer's zine, and it looks like this is the cover. And I actually have a copy of her zine right here. So let's take a look at the size of this image. And this image looks like it's 5 by 7, and the zine itself is also 5 by 7, and so we know that this image does not have a bleed all around it because it's exactly the size of the zine. So let's add a 1/8 inch bleed to this image. So if you're creating your image ahead of time, you have to increase the size of your image by the amount of bleed that your printer specifies. So if it's 1/8 inch bleed, and 1/8 inch is 0.125 inches, this image should be 5.25 by 7.25. And it's because we're adding 0.125 to the top and 0.125 to the bottom. So that adds an extra 1/4 of an inch to the width and the height. And so this would be an image with bleed on it. And if your printer wants you to send them just individual pages with bleed included, you can send them this and tell them that you've included a 1/8 inch bleed all around. And so they'll know to cut this down to 5 by 7. But we're not actually going to start with this file because we're actually going to be using Photoshop to create our booklet layout template. Now what I will say is that Photoshop is not what designers traditionally use to do layout, but for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to use it. So let's create a new document, and we're going to make this document 10.25 by 7.25 inches. And always at least 300 pixels per inch for print. And so the way I arrived at this number is this zine is 5 by 7 inches. And so if I unfold this booklet, this 5-inch width becomes 10 inches across. And with 1/8 inch bleed on either side, that adds 1/4 of an inch to the width. And same with the height. So I'm going to hit OK. And this is going to be the basic size of where we're going to place our pages. So now let's create some guide marks so that we know exactly where our bleeds should go. So if we go to View and New Guide, on the horizontal side, we have a bleed 0.125 inches down. So right there. And another one 7.125 inches down. So these are our bleeds on the horizontal side. Let's create one for the vertical side. Same thing, 0.125 inches on the outer side. So 10.125. And this is just the 10.25 inch minus 1/8 of an inch bleed. So these are the outer bounds of where our pages are going to go. And this is where the final booklet/pages will be cropped. So I'm going to create one last guide, which is the centerfold. So that's just at 5 inches because it's a 5x7 booklet, but there's an extra 1/8 inch bleed on this left side. So I'm just going to add 1/8 of an inch there, and that is the centerfold. Alright, so now we're going to look at our booklet page ordering cheat sheet, and we're going to work on the front side. And so we can see that page 1, or the book cover, is on the right side, and page 20, or the back cover, is on the left side. And so this is what it looks like. So the front cover, or page 1, is on the right side, and the back cover, or page 20, is on the left side. So let's put that in this template. Alright, so let's open up page 1 and page 20 of this zine. And so if we go to page 1 and we look at the image size, this image does not have a bleed all around it. It's exactly 5x7, and it doesn't need a bleed all around it because nothing really needs to go all the way to the edge. So I'm going to double click on this background layer because this is going to define the size of the page, and I'm going to put them all in a folder so that I can move them all at once into our template. And I'm going to name it as 1 because it's page 1, and I'm going to duplicate this group to our template. And I'm going to hit the move tool. And as you can see, if you have this show transform controls box ticked, then it'll show you where the bounding box is of this group. And so there, so I've placed it into the right side of this template. And I'm actually going to save this template because you have to always save because you never know what will happen. So for the back cover, we're going to pretend that it has a bleed. So we'll give it 1 so that you can see the difference. So we're going to extend the size of this image to 5.25 by 7.25, which will give it a 1/8 inch bleed all around. I'm going to convert this background layer into just a regular layer, and I'm going to give it this color. So now, as you can see, there's a color all around this page, and we want this color border to extend all the way to the trim. So I'm going to group this and call it 20 because it's page 20, and I'm going to duplicate this group into our template. And if I look at the move tool, which will show us the bounding box for this group, we can see that this image is now extending all the way to the bleed, as opposed to this, which goes only to the trim or the crop. Now, there is a bit of an overflow here in the middle section because there isn't a bleed for the centerfold because that's not where the booklet gets cropped. So we need to get rid of that overflow in the centerfold area. And the fastest way that I know how to do this is just to select the layer where that overflow is and deleting it. And I know this is not the most efficient way probably, but for now, it's the best way I know how to do this. So this is page 20 on the left side and page 1 on the right side. So this is a template for the front side of page 20 and 1 with a 1/8 inch bleed all around. So let's talk briefly about how you might save this spread for your printer. So for Pindot Press, we actually don't mind if you want to send us this Photoshop file, but you just have to name it appropriately. So you might want to save it as one side A, and then later on when you do the back side to the spread, you would then save it as one side B. So let's give that a save. Now, if your printer wants a PDF of each color layer, what you might do is you might hide all of the other color layers and hit File, Save As, and PDF, and call that one side A red because it's the red layer. I'm going to uncheck layers, and let's start with a high quality print and turn off all of these options and do not downsample and do not compress, and hit save. So now what you have is a high quality PDF with just the red layer. And when you give this to your Riso printer, just let them know that this is one side A red and that it's already in booklet order with a 1/8 inch bleed all around the spread. Alright, so now let's work on the back side of this spread. And so if you look at your cheat sheet, that is going to be page 2 and 19. So 2 is going to be on the left side and 19 is going to be on the right side. So let's open up page 2 and 19. Page 2 and 19. So it looks like it's just a nice little design for the back of the front cover and the back of the back cover. And if we look at the actual zine, this is what it looks like. So that's the back of the front cover, and this is the back of the back cover. So I'm going to go through the same steps. I'm not going to add a bleed to this. So if we look at the image size, it's the same. It's just 5x7, and nothing really needs to go all the way to the trim anyway. So we're just gonna group this, and we're gonna call this 19 because this is page 19, and we're going to duplicate this group to the template file. And actually the template file, remember we had named it one side A PSD, we're gonna name this as one side B. And so here is 19, and if we look at our cheat sheet, 19 is on the right side of the template. So let's just move that over. There. So the bounding box fills the trim or crop area properly, and you probably want to do snap so that it'll snap automatically to the guides, which will make it a lot easier to place the page. So let's work on 2. So I'm going to double click on this background layer, which will define the size of this page, and I'm going to group and duplicate this group to one side B as our template, and that is page 2. And I'm going to grab the move tool and I'm just going to scooch it over so it's snapped in place, and you can see this is page 2 and page 19. So we saved and named it as one side B. So your printer is going to know that this should be printed on the back of one side A. So you might have noticed that I left page 20 and page 1 in there. And if you're going to give Pindot Press a bunch of Photoshop files labeled side A and side B, then you can go ahead and trash the pages that are not applicable. So I'm going to do that right now. So one side B is just page 2 and page 19. However, you can actually also give Pindot Press a super Photoshop file with all the spreads in there already, instead of giving Pindot Press a bunch of Photoshop files. And so this is what I mean by that. If you select page 20 and 1 and you group them again and label this one side A, or 20 and 1. And if you group 2 and 19 and you put them in a folder and you label one side B 2 and 19, you can actually save this as a Zine template and maybe put the title and the name and hit save. And keep the layers this time because that's really important. Then you can keep going down your front or your A sides and your back or your B sides. And you can keep dropping down your pages into this super template layout according to the page ordering. So make sure that you're putting your pages on the right side or on the left side as appropriate. And you can group them and label them as such. And you can send Pindot Press this super Photoshop template file, and that's fine as well. So let's do 2 side A and 2 side B really quickly so that you can start to get used to this process. So if we go down the front side, we'll see that page 3 and page 18 are together, and 3 is on the right side and 18 is on the left side. So let's open up those pages. So page 3 and page 18. And so let's start with whatever's already open, which is page 18, and let's group them, and let's duplicate this group to this super template. And let's also do 3, and let's group everything together and duplicate page 3 to the super template. Now, according to our cheat sheet, page 3 is on the right side, so let's just hide everything and let's just move page 3 to the right side. And once again, I have my snap turned on, so it's properly placed. Now let's take a look at page 18. Make sure this layer is selected so that you're selecting the appropriate group. And let's drop that down. And so that looks good. So 3 is on the right side and 18 is on the left side. And so let's group this together and let's call this group 2 side A. And this is page 18 and 3. And so now let's do page 4 and 17, which is the B side to this. And as you can see, 4 is on the right side and 17 is on the left side. So let's open up pages 4 and 17. 4 and 17. And let's make this background layer into a regular layer. Group that. Duplicate it into our super template and call that 17. Do the same with 4. Turn that into a group and duplicate it into our super template and call that 4. And so 4 is on the left side. So let's put 17. That's where we have 17 selected, so I'm just going to move that over here. And let's move 4 on this side. Sometimes you got to zoom in to see if you got that right. Okay, so now let's double check if 4 is on the left side and 17 is on the right side. And so now let's label this as 2 side B, 4, and 17. So now that we've done this a couple of times, I'm sure you're beginning to get the gist of how to use Photoshop to lay out your zine. Now, some printers might not want you to do this. They might not want you to do the booklet layout for them. So they might just want you to give them individual pages with a bleed all around. Other printers might want you to do the booklet layout for them, but they just want individual color layers as separate PDFs. Now at Pindot Press, we do want you to do the booklet layout for us, and you can give them to us as separate color PDFs or as this super template. Alright, so that was Photoshop. So the pro for Photoshop is that many artists are already familiar with using Photoshop, so this is actually very intuitive for artists. However, it's not a pro layout software, so the con for Photoshop is it gets pretty tedious when you have to drop down the pages according to booklet page ordering, and you have to manually first figure that out. And also, there's not really an automatic way of generating the crops and the bleeds for your document. So now we're going to jump into InDesign, which is actually a pro layout software. So it's actually very much worth learning to use to set up your zine.